Right now, as you are listening to this, there is a stranger living inside your head. A stranger who makes most of your decisions before you even realize a decision was being made. This stranger picks the person you fall in love with. It picks what you say in an argument you later regret. It picks the food you eat, the money you spend, the opinions you hold, and even the people you trust. And here is the scariest part. You have never once been introduced to this stranger. You think you are the one running your life. You are not. And once you understand this, everything changes. This is the core truth behind one of the most important books ever written about the human mind. Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in economics, not for being a mathematician, not for being a banker, but for quietly proving one thing the whole world needed to hear. Humans are not rational. We just think we are, and in the next few minutes I want to take you deep inside your own mind, so you can finally see what is really happening in there. Let us start with a simple picture. Imagine you are walking down a street and someone suddenly shouts behind you. Before you even think, your head snaps around. Your heart jumps. Your body is already reacting. You did not choose to react, it happened to you. Now, imagine someone hands you a piece of paper and asks you to multiply 17 by 24. Suddenly, everything slows down. You squint. Your shoulders tense. You have to actually work. That first reaction, that instant, effortless, automatic response, Kahneman calls it System 1. The second one, the slow, heavy, effortful thinking, that is System 2. Two completely different minds sharing one body. And the wild thing is, most of your life is run by System 1. The fast one, the impulsive one, the one you barely notice. System 1 is beautiful in many ways. It lets you drive a car while singing along to music. It lets you understand a sentence without breaking it apart word by word. It lets you feel someone's mood the second they walk into the room. It is what makes humans humans. But here is the problem. System 1 has no interest in truth. It only cares about stories, quick, believable, emotional stories. And when it cannot find a story, it invents one. That is where our mistakes begin. Think about the last time you met someone and instantly did not like them. You probably could not even explain why. Maybe something about their face, their voice, the way they stood. But within 3 seconds, your brain had already written their whole personality. Your System 1 met them, judged them, filed them, and moved on. And then, for the rest of that interaction, your mind quietly searched for evidence to prove itself right. Psychologists call this the halo effect, and it runs our lives far more than we would ever admit. We do not see people as they are. We see them as our first impression told us they would be. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Kahneman shows us that our minds are not just fast, they are also lazy. When a hard question lands in front of us, we almost never answer the actual question. We secretly replace it with an easier one. Think about it. If someone asks you, are you happy with your life? That is a huge question. You would have to think about your work, your health, your family, your regrets, your future. So your brain quietly swaps it for something lighter. How am I feeling right now? If you are having a good day, you will say yes. If you just had a bad phone call, you will say no. You did not answer the real question. You answered a smaller, simpler one, and then believed your answer. This tiny trick of the mind shapes enormous life decisions. Who you marry, where you work, what you believe in. And speaking of belief, let me tell you something that might shake you. The human brain is not built to seek the truth. It is built to seek comfort. Kahneman talks about something called cognitive ease. When something feels familiar, your brain labels it as true. When something is repeated often enough, it becomes true in your mind, even if it is completely false. This is why advertising works. This is why propaganda works. This is why you start believing things simply because you have heard them enough times. The brain confuses familiarity with reality. Let me say that again. Familiarity with reality. A lie you hear 100 times starts to feel more trustworthy than a truth you hear only once. Frightening, is it not? Now let me introduce you to one of the most powerful ideas in the entire book. Something called anchoring. Picture this. You walk into a store and you see a jacket marked at 20,000, crossed out, with a new price of 6,000. You feel like you are stealing it. You buy it immediately. But if that same jacket had been sitting there with only a 6,000 price tag from the start, you might have walked away. Nothing changed except a number your mind had seen earlier. That number became an anchor. And from that moment, everything else was judged against it. This is why shops show you the expensive item first. This is why salary negotiations are won by whoever throws out a number first. Your mind is constantly being anchored, and you almost never notice. But it does not stop there. Your mind also uses something Kahneman calls the availability heuristic. That just means your brain believes things are common if they come to mind easily. Think about it. After watching the news for an hour about plane crashes, you suddenly feel scared to fly, even though statistically you are far more likely to die driving to the airport than flying from it. One vivid image, one emotional story, and your whole sense of reality shifts. This is why people fear terrorism more than heart disease. This is why we worry about rare dangers and ignore slow, silent ones. Your brain confuses the vivid with the likely, the loud with the dangerous, the recent with the real. And then there is something even more painful to hear. We humans are terrible at understanding numbers. We cannot feel statistics. We only feel stories. Kahneman describes this with the example of a woman named Linda, a bright, opinionated woman who, in college, cared deeply about social justice. When people were asked, is Linda more likely to be a bank teller or a bank teller who is also a feminist, most people pick the second option. But that is logically impossible. A smaller group can never be more likely than the larger one that contains it, and yet our minds fall for it. Why? Because the story feels better. The story fits, and when a story fits, we believe it, even when the math is screaming that it is wrong. Now let us talk about money, because here, System 1 really shows its teeth. Imagine I give you 1,000 rupees right now. You feel happy. Not too excited, just a nice warm feeling. Now imagine, instead, I take 1,000 rupees out of your pocket. Suddenly the feeling is not equal and opposite. It is devastating. That is loss aversion, one of Kahneman's most famous findings. Losses hurt roughly twice as much as equivalent gains feel good. Think about what that means for your life. You stay in the job you hate because leaving feels like a loss. You hold on to the wrong relationship because walking away feels like a loss. You keep the old habits, the old beliefs, the old identity, not because they make you happy, but because losing them feels worse than being miserable. Your entire life is quietly being shaped by your fear of losing, not your desire to grow. There is a related idea called the endowment effect. The moment something is yours, it becomes worth more to you just because it is yours. In one of Kahneman's famous experiments, students were given simple coffee mugs, then asked how much they would sell them for. Other students, who did not own the mug, were asked how much they would pay. The owners demanded roughly twice as much. Same mug, same value, but owning it changed everything. Now apply that to your life. Think of the opinions you own, the identities you own, the worn-out dreams you own. You are demanding a much higher price to give them up than they are actually worth. That is why change is so hard, not because the new thing is bad, but because letting go of the old thing feels like losing a part of yourself. Now pause for a moment and feel this. You have been carrying around a mind that overvalues what it already has, fears what it might lose, believes what it hears often, trusts what comes easily, and invents stories to fill in the gaps. This is not a flaw in you. This is how every human brain works, including Kahneman's own, including mine, including the smartest people you have ever met. Understanding this is not supposed to make you feel stupid. It is supposed to make you feel free, because there is something deeper Kahneman wants us to understand. Something that honestly moved me. He says there are actually two selves inside every one of us. The experiencing self, the one who is alive in this moment, feeling the warm sun, tasting the coffee, hearing this voice. And the remembering self, the one who later tells the story of your life. And here is the twist. These two selves want different things. The experiencing self wants beautiful moments. The remembering self wants a beautiful story, and almost always the remembering self wins. You might have a 2-week holiday that was wonderful for 13 days, and on the last day the airline loses your bag and you miss your flight. When someone asks how your holiday was, what do you tell them? You tell them about the ending. That one bad moment rewrites 2 weeks of joy, because we do not live our lives, we remember them. And that memory becomes our life. Think about how much of your happiness you are trading right now for a story you will one day tell. How many moments you are missing because you are too busy worrying whether this moment will look good in the memory later. How many beautiful, small, ordinary days you are letting slip by because your remembering self has decided they do not count. If Kahneman's work taught me one thing, it is this. Your life is not made of milestones, it is made of moments, and most of them are happening while you are not paying attention. So what do we do with all of this? How do we live, knowing our own minds are constantly tricking us? Kahneman is gentle here. He does not ask us to fight our intuition. He does not ask us to question every single thought. That would be exhausting and honestly impossible. What he asks is simpler. Slow down when the stakes are high. Recognize the moments when you're about to make a big decision. A job, a marriage, an investment, a reaction to someone you love. In those moments, wake up your system too. Do not trust the first story your mind hands you. Yourself, what is the anchor here? What am I afraid of losing? What emotion is driving this? What easier question have I secretly answered instead of the real one? And here is the most human part of the whole book. Kahneman says it is far easier to see other people's mistakes than your own. We catch our friends rushing into bad decisions. We see our family members repeating the same patterns. But when it comes to our own mind, we are blind. Surround yourself with people who will tell you the truth. People who are not afraid to say, I think your system one is talking right now. Slow down. Because no matter how smart you are, you cannot see your own blind spots. You need mirrors, you need honest voices, you need love that is not afraid to correct you. Before I end this, I want you to sit with one last thought. The mind you have right now is the same basic mind that ancient humans had thousands of years ago. It was built to survive, not to be happy. It was built to avoid danger, not to chase meaning. It was built for a world of tigers and tribes, not for a world of smartphones and stock markets. Every time you feel anxious over a text message, every time you overreact to a small criticism, every time your heart races over something that does not actually matter, that is not weakness. That is an ancient survival system trying to protect you in a world it was never designed for. Once you understand that, you stop hating your own mind. You start having compassion for it. You say, oh, you are just trying to keep me safe. Thank you, but I have got this. So here is what I want to leave you with. You are not your thoughts. You are not your first reaction. You are not the fear that rises in your chest. You are the quiet awareness behind all of it. The one who can pause, breathe, and choose. And that awareness, that slow, patient, curious part of you, is the most powerful thing you own. Most people live their entire lives without ever meeting it. They let System 1 drive. They let the loud, fast, fearful voice decide everything. But you do not have to. Starting today, you can practice the rarest skill on earth. The skill of thinking slowly on purpose. The skill of choosing your response instead of reacting. The skill of noticing your own mind in action. Because the truth is, your life is not shaped by what happens to you. It is shaped by the tiny decisions you make in the half-second between a stimulus and a response. Control that half-second, and you control your life. Lose that half-second, and life controls you. Daniel Kahneman spent 50 years of his life studying the human mind just to give you that one gift, the gift of the pause, the gift of the second thought, the gift of realizing that you do not have to believe everything your brain tells you. So the next time your mind whispers, "You cannot do this," pause. The next time it screams, "They hate you," pause. The next time it convinces you that you are not enough, pause. That pause is where freedom lives. That pause is where the real you finally gets to speak. And if you can learn to live inside that pause, even a little more each day, then you will have done something most people never do in their entire lifetime. You will have stopped being a passenger in your own mind. And you will finally start to drive. Winners learn daily. Subscribe and be one of them.